Welcome back to Brighter Morning with Bhoe on MCTV, Multicultural TV, and 97.5 FM, Multicultural Radio. Our first guest is Professor Duraisammy Sarvankumar, a plant pathologist at the University of the West Indies. And we're going to talk to him about the work that he's doing in agriculture and on agricultural innovation and its potential for diversification. So we want to welcome at this point Professor Sarvankumar. Could we have him on set? Morning, sir. How are you?
Hello, good morning, sir. I'm good.
You look very bright this morning. You could be an ad for a Brighter Morning with Bhoe.
It's my pleasure. So good morning to you and good morning to all listeners. I'm glad to join this morning with you.
Okay, great. Could I tell me, the work that you are doing is ongoing, very important work in plant pathology, and tell me what would be the most important thing right now for a viewer to see and hear from you about the work that you're doing that is of value to agriculture, to agricultural development and development of the society.
Okay, thank you. So, according to United Nations, food safety and security is the responsibility of all countries. If you look into the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030, then we can realize how important is agriculture. Agriculture has close connection with a lot of Sustainable Development Goals of 2030, such as end hunger, no poverty, health and sanitation, clean water, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life on land and life below water. When we look at the agricultural system in Trinidad and Tobago, we can realize that it has so many challenges, technical challenges and social challenges, economic challenges. When we have discussed with the stakeholders on technical challenges, we realized that 1 in 5 farmers indicated that pests and diseases are major constraints, either the existing pests and diseases or emerging pests and diseases. Ultimately, the farmers go for use of pesticides. Now we have to understand the toxicity of the pesticides. According to WHO and GHS system, that is globally harmonized system of classification, pesticides that presents high toxicity to human, animal and environmental health system is considered as highly hazardous pesticides. The concept of highly hazardous pesticides has been introduced into the Caribbean around 2013. After that, there have been so many agencies involved in studying the highly hazardous pesticides. I'm working in one of those projects funded by Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Under that project, as well as the project funded by UWI, TT, Research and Development Impact Fund, I'm trying to reduce or replace the use of highly hazardous pesticides. If you see the application of highly hazardous pesticides, it has a lot of health impacts on human beings. Not only that, it can also persist on agricultural commodities. So it has a serious challenge with the safety of food items that we produce and safety of consumers. Recently, what we have done in 2021 January to March, we have conducted a survey in Trinidad to see what is happening with this highly hazardous pesticides and what is the impact of these highly hazardous pesticides on the pesticide operators. When we have done this survey across country with good representative samples, we have noted that almost 48% of the study population indicated that they had pesticide poisoning incidents. In the sense, within 24 hours of exposure of pesticide, they had either experienced neurological or sensory problems or respiratory problems or any other problems that are related to their health. Out of 48% of the people indicated the problem, 3% of the population indicated there is a severe symptoms noticed within 24 hours of application of the pesticides. Whereas 45% of the people indicated that they had moderate and the mild symptoms. This sets us the basics to develop some of the alternative methods or technologies to reduce or suppress the pathogens by replacing or reducing the use of highly hazardous pesticides. So that's what actually I'm doing here.
Okay.
In that regard.
Very good, and thank you for that explanation. So for the viewers and the audience that is listening on the radio, there is an issue of food security for a country so that a nation can feed itself. But there's also the issue of food safety, which is to say the extent to which the food that you consume is safe. We have a food security problem because we import about $6 billion in agricultural products from outside. And we have the capability of producing food in Trinidad and Tobago and reducing that import bill. So we can produce more food, get more food on the table, and we can save foreign exchange and reduce the import bill. But we have another problem, which Professor Sarvankumar is indicating, which is that from a survey recently done in the first 3 months of 2021, we find that 48% of the farmers are affected by the pesticides that they use, either in the respiratory tract or in some form of response to the chemicals. And of course, depending on how many times you spray, this might stay in the food, and it is probably transferable when you cook and consume the food. And what he is working on and what he is trying to bring to this country as something of value is a replacement for pesticides while we deal with the issue of food security. We also deal with the question of food safety. Have I got it right, Professor?
Exactly.
Okay, well, tell me what you are doing that will bring value to the consumer, to the farmer, and the table. Because the farmer is affected, right? I mean, the farmer can, his or her health can be affected. The workers in the field, their health can be affected. And the person buying the product can be affected. And we want to solve this problem, okay? We want to grow more food, but we want to grow food sustainably so it can make a difference to the nutrition health of the population. So tell me what you are doing and how it will make a difference. Be very pointed in your answers. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Here, what I'm doing is I'm developing a biopesticide which consisted of microorganisms and that are naturally available. In those microorganisms,
there are no chemicals in them. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is no chemicals.
They are made out of natural ingredients that are available?
Yeah, the microorganisms that are present in the soil, like in a society, how we have a policing system as well as the criminals. We use the policing system to control the criminals. Similarly, in case of microorganisms also, that is a beneficial microorganism which can be used to control the pathogenic microorganisms that cause disease in plants. Here in this case, we have identified the microorganisms that can potentially help to grow the plant as well as suppress or reduce the disease attack on plants and develop disease resistance in plants. We have identified such microorganisms and developed them as biopesticides. Here, again, after development of the biopesticides, the most important thing that we have to see to put it in the market is a shelf life. Once we develop the biopesticides, it should have a longer shelf life without compromising its quality for about 6 months or 1 year. And we have done that, and we have identified that we have a product which can work against several diseases that can present a threat to tomato, hot pepper, sweet pepper, and lettuce. This is with respect to the microbial organisms and development of biopesticides. Once we have these biopesticides more in the market, then there will be a sustainable disease management practices will become available to the farmers and they will be able to use it. Thereby, they could reduce the use of pesticides. This is one thing. Then the second thing is we have used the biological system within the plant itself. You know that there is a grafting technique which is used in horticultural crops like mango or in guava or in other crops. But in case of vegetables also, we could use grafting as an innovative technique to develop disease resistance against soil-borne diseases. There are diseases which can present in soil, the microorganisms, and can cause a disease. Here, we have identified the resistant rootstock to the bacterial wilt disease, which is a serious threat again in many of the solanaceous vegetables. And we have grafted either tomato or the other plants onto the Solanum torvum, which is a resistant rootstock, that is wild type eggplant. And that plant has offered resistance to these diseases. So these two major innovative things that we are doing here. At the same time, I'm also working with the Jamaican agriculture system.
All right, we'll get to that for a minute.
Okay.
So let me just get the viewership, the population to understand this. So you're working with biopesticides and therefore replacing the pesticides that are harmful now to humans.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that you are using a grafting technique, which is a well-known technique, in order to build the capacity in the plant that will not only make it resistant to disease, but with these two things together, the shelf life of the product is longer. Is that correct?
Yeah, shelf life of the biopesticide is a separate thing, whereas here we do this grafting. Grafting is a separate thing, and these two are two different innovative management strategies for disease management.
Okay, so you have identified a problem, you have found solutions, and you have created the innovations that are necessary in order to make them applicable. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
let us look at one of the videos now, the video number 2, in which it deals with tomato and lettuce and I can't remember, might be peppers. And let's see what Professor Sarvankumar is talking about.
Hello, my name is Pascal Okoye, and I am a postgraduate student at the Department of Food Production, Faculty of Food and Agriculture, the University of the West Indies. Welcome to the video on plant growth promoting microbes in plant health management. Plant diseases are the major constraints in the cultivation of vegetables like tomato, hot pepper, and lettuce in tropical conditions. The resulting losses range from 20 to 100%. In an attempt to control the plant diseases, pesticides are applied. The use of pesticides has many negative impacts on human health and food safety. The pesticide residues are major concerns threatening food safety, especially in vegetables which are consumed in unprocessed or raw forms. Pesticides also contaminate the soil, streams, and groundwater, affecting environmental health, and develop resistance in pathogens, demanding more application of pesticides. Therefore, the development of environment-friendly plant health management is needed. In the current research, the beneficial microorganisms that live in the root regions of plants have been identified and isolated. The disease control and plant growth promoting potential of those beneficial microorganisms were studied by the screening of active metabolites by PCR tests, laboratory, greenhouse, and field studies. From those studies, we identified an elite plant growth promoting rhizobacteria and developed it as a microbial bioformulation. The application of bioformulation has reduced bacterial wilt disease in tomato, collar rot disease in hot pepper, and leaf spot disease in lettuce under varied evaluation conditions. Our research has evidence that microbial bioformulation promotes plant growth and control plant diseases through the production of plant hormones and suppression of pathogens by antagonism and lysis of cells. In addition, the microbial bioformulation induced the expression of defense proteins in plants, which fortify the plants against the diseases. It is concluded from the research that the microbial biopesticides could be a viable alternative to highly hazardous pesticides in sustainable agricultural practices. These will reduce the use of chemical pesticides in plant disease management and enhance our health and well-being and that of the environment.
Thank you very much. Would you like to add anything to that video? Very crisp. Sure.
Okay. Currently, we are working on the safety of this product through some clinical trials, and this product should be available in the market soon, and that's what we are working on it.
Okay, so we have an alternative then that could get us into the realm of sustainable agriculture rather than health-defeating chemicals in our agricultural products that are hazardous to both the farmer, the workers in the agricultural system, and the consumer of locally produced products. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
well, let us go on to something else. I mean, what is the relationship between knowledge such as these things that you produce and the Ministry of Agriculture and getting the knowledge to the farmer and therefore influencing the production system? I mean, in today's world, you can't have a divorce between knowledge and applications, and you cannot have a divorce between an isolated knowledge sector and the things that we want to achieve as human beings. And as you said, all of these things are related to the Millennium Development Goals of the United Nations for sustainability. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. The role of a ministry as well as the extension division of the ministry is very, very important in this regard. Once the technology is developed in a university or in any of the research institutions, then sometimes the knowledge is stayed at that level. But it has to be...
That's been our perennial problem. That has been our perennial problem.
It's a problem everywhere that I see.
Yeah.
So we have to develop the technologies, but at the same time, we have to see that it is reaching to the target people. That's very important. Here, we are working with the research division as well as extension arm of the ministry, and we have trained the agricultural extension officers on disease diagnosis as well as sensitizing them about this product. But still, the link between the research institutions and the ministry, as well as the farmers and the private sectors, it needs to be strengthened. In that regard, if we have a plan for agricultural plan or national agricultural plan for short-term goals as well as medium-term goals and long-term goals, and every year if we have that agenda on the table and discuss with all the stakeholders to see what you bring it to the table, and finally that can be addressed to the concerns of the farmers as well as the stakeholders. Here we getting some assistance from the extension offices and the private system as well to reach out to the farmers regarding these products. But still, there is a lot of work has to be done.
All right. You were starting to tell me something about Jamaica and the work that you are doing in Jamaica. Tell me about it very succinctly.
Okay. In case of Jamaica, there is a severe disease problem in ginger cultivation. They are seeing ginger as a potential export crop. In Jamaica, I have introduced a technology called single bud technology, and using that single bud technology, they can produce 50 seedlings with handful of rhizome, which is a conventional method of planting in ginger. Using the single bud technology, they will be able to produce disease-free seedlings and quality seedlings. Not only that, the certification system has been developed in Jamaica, starting from tissue culture plants of ginger to the production of rhizomes for commercial processing and agro-industry. When I look at the agriculture in Jamaica, based on my perception, the agricultural system there in Jamaica appears to be more serious than the other countries in even here. When I look at it, they take more serious, and they are piloting it with public-private partnerships. And there is a more potential for that crop in Jamaica, and that's the work that I'm doing with them.
You're also doing work there in with turmeric, right? Ginger and turmeric.
Ginger and turmeric. Yes. Recently, they also went into turmeric cultivation, and they wanted to produce turmeric as an other export crop. They are very much interested in producing turmeric. The same single bud technology has been introduced in Jamaica for turmeric production, and the certification system is currently being developed in Jamaica for production of disease-free quality planting materials and to increase the production of turmeric for agro-processing industries.
Okay. Now you're saying that they are a little more serious about agriculture in Jamaica than Trinidad and Tobago. What are the elements of that seriousness that you detect?
Okay, to simply answer that, high income countries, if you look at across the region, not only the region, but also across countries, high income countries, the percentage of contribution to GDP from agriculture is very less. And also the low income countries or else moderate income countries, they all take agriculture as serious venture, as they see that there is more contribution of GDP from agriculture. That is one thing. Then the other thing, there is no other serious or high income generating ventures. So in that case, they may think that the agriculture is the sole profession to increase the GDP as well as support the employment. That is also the another thing. Then there is a plan for each of these things, and they not only plan but also execute. So execution is very, very important in case of agriculture. Not only execution, after execution we need to do the follow-up and monitoring and evaluation. Sometimes that is lacking in some countries where they wanted to venture in agriculture, and planning itself will not lead to the success. They need to execute and they need to lead. So there are some disconnect in the system, I would say, between the public-private partnerships, especially in case of agriculture. That is one of the major challenges I see here.
Professor Umaharan, one of your colleagues, was making that very, very decisive point here on a program earlier, that disconnect between knowledge, government policy, execution, and private sector involvement for investment was a serious deficiency in our system of production. Go ahead.
In Jamaica, when I look at it, and they have strong participation of private people in many of these export items, as well as organizing farmers, and their involvement is a key for diversifying economy on any sector. That I see as a lack here in Trinidad.
All right, okay. Now, we only have a few minutes more before we get to the 7 o'clock news. And one of our big problems here is the food import bill, $6 billion. The second thing is that creates a foreign exchange problem for us, which is a major problem. And we could solve that problem not only by the knowledge that you bring in terms of quality, but we can also solve that problem in terms of production and productivity. But we've got, therefore, to diversify the range of products that we produce using the science and technology available. We've got to introduce innovations in there. We have to make the agricultural sector more competitive so that, in fact, food produced here is cheaper to the consumer than food imported. And thirdly, that we have the capacity to export. And we need entrepreneurship, or else ideas will just lie fallow. Because you need to move from ideas to action, to creation, to application, and to innovation. Could you talk a little bit about the diversification, innovation, competitiveness, and entrepreneurship process?
Yeah, sure. With respect to agriculture here, as I told, the contribution is just only 1% to GDP. That is because of a high-income country. But at the same time, if you look at the land available, that is a major constraint for diversification. So what we need to do is, we need to increase productivity per unit area. So increase the production per unit area is possible through developing technologies. So we need to develop technologies. That is one.
Okay, yes, let me just stop you there.
Yeah.
So besides the use of scientific and technological knowledge, we have got to have what you might call smart agriculture. Okay, we cannot depend on acreage of land anymore. We've got to deal with production per plant.
Yeah.
And deal with the issue of space.
Yeah.
So that we can, within, let's say, 1 hectare of land, produce what we might have produced in 10 hectares because of science, technology, innovation, and the application of these. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Would you say that loud and clear so everybody can understand that and we can get away from the stupidity that informs our strategy for agriculture?
Okay, we need to increase the production per unit area or per hectare through technology. That is one thing. And the second important thing is the high cost of cultivation. To reduce that, we need to mechanize, and that mechanization should be appropriate for smallholders. That can bring down the cost of cultivation and the cost of investment. Then the third one is we are lacking in value addition, which is very important to improve the economy of small island developing states. And also we do not have much of small and medium enterprises in agriculture. We need to strengthen that as well to increase value in agriculture and to reduce the cost of investment or the cost of cultivation. Only then we will be able to diversify our economy in agriculture. And not only that, standalone diversification of economy in agriculture may not be possible considering all these challenges. In such cases, we need to tie up this with other sectors like renewable energy sector and the tourism sector, which can be linked to the cottage industry and agro-tourism. There are several avenues and opportunities to connect agriculture with other sectors and to improve the income that are generated in agriculture.
All right, so we need a whole different approach to make this thing viable. I hope there are people from the government sector that are listening, and I hope that the Minister of Agriculture is listening to this. I'm going to send him a video of this conversation that we are having here. I'm going to try to have him on the program so that we can have a discussion. But this, backward approach that we are taking to agriculture in Trinidad and Tobago is going to get us nowhere. And we need to use the science and technology and innovation and applications in order to get it. And we have the knowledge here in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have the scientists here who can help us. And we have the private entrepreneurs now. This COVID pandemic has killed off at least 1,000 small businesses in this country. We had about 25,000 small and medium enterprises in this country, and I venture to say that over 1,000 small businesses have been killed. Here are people with knowledge and entrepreneurial skill and capability who, through no fault of their own, have lost their businesses. We could give them a second chance. We could bring them into the picture, and we could get new entrepreneurs. We could even get the producers in agriculture themselves, with perhaps help from their children who might be university educated and others, to get into this agricultural innovation. So I want to thank you for your contribution here. I enjoyed it very much. I'm going to send this video to the Minister of Agriculture, and we're going to try to have a conversation with him. And I hope that you'll come on another time where we can continue this discussion, because all the things that I'm doing on this program are not one-shot interviews. I am not doing interviews, and I am not doing a talk show. This is a developmental program for Trinidad and Tobago, and we will talk to people who have ideas that can make a difference to the development of this country. If you have an idea, I will welcome you to this program and give you the opportunity to say your piece. I will challenge you, of course, in what you say, but we will be able to do it. And I want to thank you, Professor Sarvankumar, for coming on and making a fantastic contribution. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you, and thanks to the listeners. Bye.
Okay. And thank you very much for watching. This is Brighter Morning with Bhoe. And we hand over now to Shanil Al-Suran for the news. Thank you.